Our deepest fear. There once was a student who went searching for teachers, not because the student lacked intelligence, not because the student lacked talent, not because the student lacked signs, dreams, warnings, instincts, or gifts. The student had all of these. That was the trouble. Something powerful lived inside the student, and everyone seemed to recognize it except the one who carried it. Strangers noticed it and became uncomfortable. Friends noticed it and grew distant. Enemies noticed it and became determined. The broken noticed it and followed. The jealous noticed it and sharpened their tongues. Even the student noticed it sometimes, but only for a moment. Then fear would rise like smoke, and the student would look away. So the student searched for teachers. When the student found them, they were not sitting in temples. They were not dressed in robes. They were not gathered under golden light. They looked like ordinary things. A closed door, a lost friend, a hard season, a betrayal, a hunger that would not leave, a loneliness that seemed to know the student by name, a mirror, a silence, a prayer that returned unanswered. The student did not understand. "Where are the teachers?" the student asked. And life answered, "Here." The student thought that meant the lessons would begin gently. They did not. The first lesson was disappointment. The student wanted to be chosen, but was overlooked. The student wanted to be understood, but was misunderstood. The student wanted to be loved without condition, but was measured, compared, doubted, and dismissed. Still, the student endured. Then came the second lesson: loss. Something precious was taken. Not all at once. That would have been merciful. It was taken piece by piece, day by day, until the student began to fear waking up, because morning had become another mouth that demanded strength. The student cried, "Why is this happening to me?" No answer came. Only another lesson. The third lesson was betrayal. The student opened the heart to people who smiled with one face and calculated with another. They took what they could. They lied when truth would have been easier. They called the student difficult for refusing to remain small. They called the student proud for remembering fragments of worth. They called the student broken after helping break what they could reach. And the student believed them for a while. That was the cruelest part. Not the betrayal, the belief. The student began to wonder, maybe they are right. Maybe I am too much. Maybe I am not enough. Maybe there is nothing sacred in me at all. The teachers said nothing. Years passed inside the student, even when only days passed outside. The student became skilled at surviving, skilled at smiling with a tired mouth, skilled at standing while collapsing inward, skilled at carrying pain without making noise, skilled at helping others while secretly starving, skilled at pretending not to need the very tenderness once begged for in silence. People praised the student for being strong. The student hated the word. Strong had become the name people gave when they wanted permission not to help. Strong had become the cage. Strong had become the costume. Strong had become the thing everyone celebrated while never asking what it had cost. Still, the lessons continued. The student tried to escape them. There were many times the student ran into distractions, into noise, into desire, into anger, into pride, into people who felt like shelter but became storms, into habits that promised rest and demanded payment, into rooms full of bodies where the loneliness grew louder, into anything that did not require looking inward. But every road bent back. Every face became a mirror. Every enemy carried a message. Every lover revealed a wound. Every loss uncovered a name the student refused to answer to. The student grew bitter. I did not ask for this, the student said. But somewhere, long ago, the student had asked. He had. Not in those words. Never in those words. The student had asked to be real, asked to be free, asked to become whole, asked to know why the fire had followed since childhood, asked for purpose, asked for truth, asked for a life that did not feel borrowed. And the world had listened. That was the terrible mercy of it. The student had prayed for a crown and did not understand that first the false head must be broken. The student had prayed for wings and did not understand that first the cage must become unbearable. The student had prayed for light and did not understand that light, when it first arrives, exposes everything. So the student cursed the light, called it cruelty, called it punishment, called it abandonment, called it proof that heaven had turned away. The teachers still said nothing. Then came the long season. No one who has lived through the long season mistakes it for ordinary sadness. Ordinary sadness visits. The long season moves in. It sits at the table. It follows into sleep. It stains music. It changes the taste of food. It makes laughter feel like a language once known but now forgotten. During the long season, the student stopped asking for happiness, then stopped asking for justice, then stopped asking for explanation. At last, the student asked only for enough strength to make it through one more day without disappearing from the inside. Still, something remained. A small thing. Not hope. Hope was too bright a word. This was older than hope, harder than hope. A coal beneath ash, a breath beneath rubble, a pulse beneath silence. Something in the student would not die. The student hated that too, because if something remained, then there was still responsibility. Still another morning, still another step, still another chance to become what the student had spent a lifetime refusing to see. The final lesson arrived without announcement. It looked like everything arriving at once. The old wounds returned. The old voices returned. The old fears returned. Abandonment, shame, failure, rage, desire, grief. The memory of being unseen, the terror of being seen. The student fought until there was no strength left to fight with, then fought with pride. When pride failed, he fought with anger. When anger failed, he fought with stubbornness. When stubbornness failed, he fought with breath. One breath, then another, until even breathing felt like a rebellion. At the end of it, the student was no longer walking. The student crawled, not as a symbol, not as poetry. Crawled because standing belonged to another life. Crawled across the ground where every dream had fallen. Crawled past the faces of those who once laughed. Crawled past the memories of those who left. Crawled past every version of the self that had been invented for survival. The pleasing self, the angry self, the silent self, the untouchable self, the self that needed no one, the self that wanted to be saved but would not admit it. One by one, they fell away. At last, the student reached the feet of the teachers, or what the student had believed were teachers. Life, God, the universe, enemies, time, circumstance, the outer world, the inner mirror. All of them stood there wearing one face. The student lifted a trembling head. The voice came out broken, nearly swallowed by dust. I made it. I made it. No trumpets sounded. No doors opened. No hands reached down. Only silence. Then one teacher looked upon the student with eyes that held neither pity nor surprise. We knew. The student stared. Pain became confusion. Confusion became fire. You knew? The teacher did not move. We knew. The student's voice rose from somewhere deeper than the body. You knew I would make it through this? Yes. You knew I would be dragged through loss? Yes. You knew I would be betrayed? Yes. You knew I would question myself? Yes. You knew I would almost forget my own name? Yes. The student shook with fury. Then why? The word tore through the air. Why let me bleed through years? Why let me beg for answers? Why let me mistake the lessons for punishment? Why let me think I had been abandoned? If you knew I would make it, why did I have to go through it? For the first time, the teacher knelt, not above the student now, but beside. The teacher's voice was quiet, because we knew. The student froze. The teacher continued. We knew. Life knew. The ones who loved you knew. The ones who feared you knew. The ones who tried to stop you knew. Even the darkness knew. That is why it came so fiercely. The student said nothing. The teachers looked toward the road behind them. You thought the world was trying to destroy you. The student followed the teacher's gaze. There lay the road. Every wound, every loss, every betrayal, every night survived without applause. Every door closed, every prayer unanswered. Every person who became a mirror, every enemy who revealed a boundary, every abandonment that stripped away begging, every failure that buried illusion. The teacher spoke again. The world was not gentle with you. No. It could not be. The student whispered, "Why?" The teacher answered, "Because gentleness came first." The student looked up. The teacher's eyes were steady. It came many times. In whispers, in signs, in dreams, in discomfort, in the quiet knowledge that you were living beneath yourself, in the ache that followed every false yes, in the heaviness that came from staying where your spirit could not breathe. In every moment, you knew and looked away. The student closed his eyes. The teacher said, "You wanted the truth to arrive without cost. You wanted change without death. You wanted the door to open while still clinging to the room. You wanted to become without releasing what could not come with you." The student trembled, not from weakness now, from recognition. The teacher's voice softened. "We did not need the trials to know who you were." The wind moved over the ground. You did. The student lowered his head. Something inside broke. Not the body. Something older. Something false. The student remembered every time fear had worn the mask of humility. Every time comfort had called itself peace. Every time smallness had pretended to be safety. Every time resentment had hidden grief. Every time judgment of others had protected the terror of self-reflection. Every time the student had disrupted the world rather than sit alone with the mirror. Every time the student had demanded love while refusing vulnerability. Every time the student had called the cage home because freedom required too much honesty. The teacher did not name any of this. The teacher did not have to, because the student saw it, and seeing was almost unbearable. There is a pain greater than being misunderstood by others. It is the moment a person understands how long they have misunderstood themselves. There is a terror greater than failure. It is the discovery that success has been waiting on the other side of the self one kept defending. There is a loneliness greater than abandonment. It is standing before one's own soul after years of absence and realizing it had been waiting the whole time. The student wept then, not beautifully, not softly. The kind of weeping that makes no attempt to be dignified. The kind that comes when a life finally stops arguing with the truth. The teachers remained. The road remained. The wounds remained. But the student was no longer looking at them the same way. The student whispered, "I thought I was afraid I would not survive." The teacher said nothing. The student looked at their own hands, scarred, dirty, still alive, then whispered, "But that was not it." The teacher waited. The student looked toward the horizon. Something was rising there. Not bright enough to erase the darkness, only bright enough to reveal that darkness was not all there was. The student did not smile. This was not that kind of ending. Some victories are too deep for smiling. Some victories arrive like a grave opening from the inside. Some victories do not feel like joy at first. They feel like silence, like breath, like the first honest moment after a lifetime of performance. The student remained on the ground for a while longer. No one rushed the movement. No one named what had been found. No one placed a crown upon the student's head. No one said leader. No one said healer. No one said chosen. No one said purpose. Those were words too small, you see. And some things, once named too quickly, become less than what they are. At last the student began to rise, slowly, painfully, not healed, not whole in the simple way people like to imagine, but awake. Behind the student, the road stretched back into darkness. Ahead, the light waited without begging to be followed. The teachers watched. The student took one step, then another. Not because the pain was gone, because the fear had changed. And somewhere, in places the student would never see, others stood at the edges of their own trials, afraid of the mirror, afraid of the silence, afraid of the truth beneath their anger, afraid of the grief beneath their cruelty, afraid of the tenderness beneath their armor, afraid of the greatness that would require them to stop pretending they were powerless. They would hear this story one day. Some would mock it. Some would call it too dark. Some would scroll past it quickly because something inside them had begun to move. But a few would become quiet. A few would remember the closed door, the betrayal, the hunger, the loneliness, the strange feeling that life had been calling them by a name they were afraid to answer. And perhaps one of them, alone in the dark, would finally stop running long enough to ask, what if this has not only been happening to me? What if something has been trying to show me? And perhaps, for the first time in years, thank you for listening.